Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Dan Keeley. I'm a mental health activist and a keynote speaker. For those of you that have been waiting patiently to watch this live on Facebook, we are learning as we go, and we couldn't quite live stream it on Facebook this morning, but we are recording, and it's wonderful to have as many of you joining us on Zoom as we speak. So I'm sure many people will join us over the next hour or so to kick off what is the first Sevenoaks Chamber Wellbeing Week, at least for this year. Who knows, we might squeeze another one in before the end of the year. But it's great to be here. My name is Dan Keeley. I'm a mental health activist and a keynote speaker. So I've dedicated my life to having these conversations, to bringing people together to talk about what really matters most. So for me, I'm hugely passionate about empowering others to speak up when we're struggling. So I've had my own lived experiences with bipolar disorder. That's what's led to me to be so passionate about having these conversations together. And it's great to have such a great panel with us this morning, including Julie Phillips, the CEO of Sevenoaks Chamber. We've got Amy Lane, solicitor at Thompson Stow and Passmore, and the Next Generation Business Ambassador. We've got Katrina Walker, who we all know and love, mental health first aider and Reiki master. Denise Holland, human performance coach and state of mind specialist. We've got Ian Ingalls, local musician. Ian, I haven't seen you live yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing you live when we can, see you do a live gig again. Madeline Langston, a grief recovery specialist and human development coach. So guys, thank you all so much for being here and for being patient this morning as well, whilst we've been setting up the technical stuff this ends. But it's fantastic to see you all. And we've got Julie with us until midday. So we're going to actually kick off with yourself, Julie. Yeah, just join me with this, because we've just had a few technical difficulties with the live stream on Facebook. But hey, we're learning as we go, aren't we?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's not the first technical difficulty we've had to overcome, Dan. We've had quite a few since lockdown, and it's just sort of goes with the territory now, doesn't it? Occasionally things just don't go quite according to plan. But welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks, Dan, for offering to kick this off today. Just to give you a bit of background as to why we're doing the sort of Wellbeing Week this week. Basically, since lockdown, we have obviously been talking to our members quite a lot. We've been in touch with our members. We've been focusing on business recovery, on helping businesses get grants, funding, helping them with furlough, with all of the kind of technical sides of keeping the business going, helping them make connections, helping them, network. And it's become very evident to us particularly in this lockdown, that more and more people we're talking to are actually struggling personally as well. So we really have noticed that a lot. And when we have been reaching out to our members and discussing, it hasn't all been about business. It's been about them as individuals coping with the challenges that they've been facing. And Amy Lane works close with us with our Next Generation initiative, which is networking for young entrepreneurs and professionals. And Amy's been in touch with us throughout this whole process, and we've been speaking quite a lot. And Amy, will tell you her own story in a minute, but when we were able to, Amy and I had a coffee. And we sat down and said, right, come on, let's just meet halfway and we'll have a coffee and just talk things through. And Amy then came, with her ideas saying, look, I'm struggling. I know there are other people who are struggling. How about we put on a week, like a wellbeing week, and we really focus just on individuals? So thank you, Amy, for your inspiration and, for really sort of setting that up. And so that's why we're here today. And Catherine has really pulled it all together for us. She has, reached out to the chamber membership, got different people involved, and really to make this a week of us all being able to focus on ourselves rather than just on the business side of things, because we need to be well in order to keep our businesses going. So so that's how we got to today, and really thankful for everyone who has taken part. And really should probably hand over to Amy, who can tell us where this all came from, because it was really your idea to get this going, Amy.
Thanks, Julie, and I'm just echoing your thanks to Dan for hosting today, and to Catherine for pulling it all together. Normally I go to a networking event and I tell you about what I do professionally and what what services me and the firm can offer. But today I want to sort of step away from that and just pick up on Julie's point about why I suggested doing this week. So Julie and I, as she said, we met for a coffee a couple of weeks ago, and I have personally found well, since the middle of March, quite difficult. I live on my own, and I have a fantastic family who ring in and check in with me daily, and I've got a great team that I work with, and I'm on the phone with people a lot during the course of a working day. But I can go days sometimes without seeing another person in body. You know, it's been, you know, months since I shook somebody's hand or, you know, hugged somebody, and those really small human contact that makes a big difference. And it took quite a lot for me to sort of step back and just say, I've really struggled with this, but also what could I do to turn it around and make it a positive thing for other people who live on their own, or who've been shielding, or have been, you know, very concerned about COVID and not wanted to leave their house, which was the reason for suggesting that we have the Wellbeing Week this week. And Catherine's pulled together such a wide variety of people to help and to bring the week together, and to offer the chamber members as many different tools and things to take away from this week, which will hopefully make people's lives a little bit easier, and also make people a bit more confident and comfortable saying, actually, I'm really struggling this week, can I meet you for a coffee? And not being, you know, ashamed is probably the wrong word, but feeling comfortable in doing so. So that was the reason that I suggested that we brought this week together. And I really hope that somebody, or just one person, takes away one positive thing, because then it's been a worthwhile exercise.
Amazing. Yeah, so good. And, you know, I remember, that phone call, you know, Zoom session a couple of weeks ago between the three of us. And, you know, I really felt it, Amy. And, you know, you're very open and vulnerable, you know, when we spoke then. And I think that's what it's about, is just celebrating, you know, that power of vulnerability together, and compassion and community. And we're so lucky in Sevenoaks. I think we all feel it, that the Sevenoaks community in general is you know, a warm, welcoming place to live anyway, but certainly within the chamber, you know, we've got so many members who are obviously so passionate about these conversations, but they don't happen unless somebody like yourself, Amy, you know, takes it upon themselves to ignite it. So congratulations to you as well. So in no particular order, Ian, feel free to unmute yourself. How are you? And you know, tell us, obviously you're an acoustic musician, but yeah, how have the past 6 months been for you? And tell us what you know, why have you put your hand up to be part of this opening session for the Wellbeing Week this week?
I mean, obviously it's not been a very good time for musicians and the arts in general, really. Like no help from the government whatsoever. So it's kind of like, I mean, I'm in a fortunate position where we've got two incomes coming into the household, but I know many musicians that are the main breadwinners in the household, and they're literally not able to have any money coming through the door. I mean, we're very good. We do talk to each other like a big community, especially as acoustic musicians. We keep like checking in to see if everyone's okay and how we're managing and whatnot, and helping each other get gigs when we can actually go out and work. So we are very lucky in that respect. But yeah, it's been a tricky time. Yeah,
it really has. Have you been doing any virtual gigs? I'm curious.
Yeah, I have. I did the first lockdown. I did a gig weekly where I was raising money for Age UK to help the elderly whilst they're locked down. And I raised £1,800 doing that, just doing a gig every week.
Wow.
I was contributing a different act. So every week I do a different band or solo artist, and sort of entice people to come and watch. And I was doing that from home, obviously. So that was pretty good. In between time, I was going out busking on the streets, raising money for the homeless as well. So I was doing that for Crisis at Christmas, and now I'm doing a song a day to try and keep that going. So people are sort of tuning in to my Facebook page to listen to my song, and if they like it, they can donate. So I want to try and raise a grand before Christmas, really, to help the homeless.
That's amazing. I'm sure we'll share the links probably on Facebook after today's session. But thanks for that, Ian. Madeline, hi. It's the first time we've actually met, but I've been reading all about you actually over the weekend, or mainly on LinkedIn. But you know, there's some heartfelt testimonials about your the fact that you're a people person is the thing that really jumped out at me. But if you wouldn't mind just telling us a bit about your work actually, as a coach, because it sounds really powerful and much needed at the moment, and the other side of it as a grief recovery specialist as well. But actually, before that, just tell us how have you been doing over the past 6 months?
Yeah, well, I guess like with everyone, we've all been challenged by change and changes that we don't necessarily want. And, for me, the biggest change has been working all the time from home, especially with my work. It's not always, you've got people interrupting you or neighbours knocking on your door or something at a time when you're having a session with a client. So just those little things can, become something that we need to work around. But generally, I'm just taking each day. Some days are good and some days are bad, and that's okay. I think, my work as a coach has helped me to be very self-aware, and I try my best to do that, especially with working with other people in their grief in order to help them. So, I'm very aware, like what boosts me, what drains me. And I think, during this whole year, I've really turned the volume up on that to make sure that I can be present and to be able to help other people with what they're going through. We often focus on, what we can't change and what we can't control, but, we are still in control in how we respond to that. And that's what I try to focus on.
Amazing. No, that's great. And I know with Katrina, we've met a few times, and I'm always fascinated about energy and Reiki. But before I get to you, Katrina, Denise, again, this is the first time we've met. So thank you for being part of this. So you can unmute yourself as well. And I know you're going to give us some, some of your expertise towards the end of the session about how we can all be dealing with these uncertain times. But how are you? How have you personally found the past 6 months?
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and thanks for the team for putting this together. It's been interesting in as much as, I have so much heart for everyone who has been really struggling, but I've been fascinated by just the expansion of what's been going on for people, and in terms of, seeing all of this oneness and this togetherness that it brings human beings together. And, for me, I guess I've just really focused on the love and compassion that people have when our chips are down, and how much that brings us together as one. So, and personally, if I'm really honest, I've had a great time taking time, and stepping back and reflecting and slowing down from within even more, I suppose, than I would do normally in my current role. But just stepping back, and even my sports, all the sports are stop start, and that's been frustrating. But there's just been so many good ideas that have come from it, and I probably would have missed them had I not slowed down as much as I have. So yeah, I'm very well, actually, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay, no, I'm really pleased to hear it, and I can't wait to hear some of your world-class expertise in a short while as well, Denise. But yeah, obviously it's fantastic to have you here. Katrina, I hear you have leveled up recently, going up through the ranks. Is it to level 4 Reiki Master? Is that right?
No, well, I was actually already a Reiki master, but I'm now a master teacher.
Okay, there we go. I knew it was around that area. But well, congratulations for that. And it sounds like you've been really putting a lot of time and energy yourself into that over the past 6 months. But you're always beaming, you're always smiling. I think 6 months ago, back in April when we were doing these Sevenoaks live sessions, you just brought so much calming energy, which offsets me off a lot of the time, which is a good thing to these sessions. But I was going to ask how are you doing, but you always seem very relaxed and very in tune with your own energy. But tell me if I've got that wrong. Yeah, how are you doing at the moment?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I think to be fair, when we first went into lockdown, I was working from home for a couple of weeks, and then I was put on furlough. And in all honesty, I found that really frustrating. I've worked since I was 16. I've never not had to work, so it took me quite a long time to get into the mindset of I don't need to be online every day, and there's not things I need to do. But actually, it's turned out to be a complete and utter blessing. you know, I've spent a huge amount of time with the guys through the Sevenoaks Chamber. Obviously, I'm a board director anyway, but I've been able to do more stuff with the Chamber, whether it's been involved in sort of the webinars, obviously with you when we did Are We OK Sevenoaks. You know, I've spent time being in contact with the members, ringing around, making sure people are okay. But the other thing I've been doing is I've been walking every day as well, which has kept my mental health balance in a really good place. Obviously, I couldn't practice Reiki for a chunk of lockdown because we weren't allowed to practice. But once that opened up again, you know, I had an influx of people coming in just wanting to stop and rebalance themselves, and actually that was fabulous too. So yeah, I'm in a really good place, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, really pleased to hear it. But you know, I just keep thinking how lucky we are to have, you know, so much green space. Obviously, around where we live, I think we can all, you know, that's one thing we can all agree on, is we're just so lucky, whether it's the Nature Reserve or Knoll Park, obviously, or Montreal Estates. You know, there's so many you know, green spaces around us, which we're so lucky for. And so I wanted to, you know, just open this up to all of us, really, just to, you know, dive deep, to be really honest. I mean, just to share a bit about my setup here, you know, I've got an 18-month-old son called Maxwell, and he is stunning and gorgeous and mind-blowing and all the rest of it. But, you know, sometimes, obviously, if I'm doing a live session like this, similar to Madeline, you know, he can be asleep next door, he can be waking up. And, you know, if, you know, my wife's a nurse, so if her shifts don't quite allow, then I do need to respond to Max. So I've felt that, you know, that being a tricky balance sometimes. But, you know, similar to all of us, I think we're people. And I love, you know, connection. I love community. I love thriving off the positive energy of other people. And it's all very well and good doing this as best we can through a screen. But that's definitely been my biggest challenge over the past 6 months, is just not being able to see people. And it really caught up with me. I thought I was doing fine. You know, I was leaning into the virtual events and the webinars and all this stuff. But, you know, it's just amazing, isn't it, how it can just catch up on us and just realize actually we're social beings, and, you know, we need to be around other people. It's just so important. And we know that, you know, there's a lot of stats coming out about loneliness and isolation. You know, every other day there's another announcement from the government about different stats coming on. But that's why these weeks are so important. So one thing I did want to just open it up to all of us about is really, you know, the power of vulnerability and finding the courage to say, actually, you know, I'm not doing okay right now. I'd love to have a conversation about it. And one quote I always draw inspiration from is one that Winston Churchill lived by. Obviously lives just down the road in Westerham. And he always said that when suffering finds meaning, it ceases to be suffering. So when suffering finds meaning, it ceases to be suffering. So if we can draw the meaning out of our lived experiences and the struggles that we all face together, then great things can come from that. Similar to what you were touching on there, Denise. But, you know, I'm hoping that from this whole chapter, there are going to be loads of positives that we can take moving forward. Obviously, the conversation with the Chamber, like you said, Julie, has shifted a little bit away towards, you know, the day in, day out, what we can be doing to help businesses thrive in the local area, more towards our well-being and looking out for each other. But I just want to open that up because, you know, from my lived experiences with bipolar disorder, I had to really review, you know, that whole chapter that I went through to pull the meaning of my lived experiences and then channel that into helping other people, which has become a blessing for me. But you know, Julie, Amy, Katrina, you've been closest to these conversations in the Chamber. So you know, perhaps if you can just, you know, spin on that with me about how those conversations have evolved, you know, over recent months.
I mean, I think, you know, we've always felt very fortunate that we have a really great business community in the Sevenoaks Chamber, and we've always valued that. But it really has come into a life of its own during lockdown. You know, we've always been really focused on finding business connections, helping you know, businesses make connections, you know, people they can sell to, people they can get services from. And for these last, you know, since the beginning of lockdown, it has just changed the relationship that, you know, people have with one another. And it's not just about the business, it's very personal, and people want to support each other. And we've found ourselves really supporting businesses in ways that we never have before. Businesses will come to us and we don't know the answer, but we'll make sure we go and find out, and we're learning about new things, about, you know, funding, about how to complete a form, silly basic things that you wouldn't normally see us getting involved in, but we're really trying to support individuals who just can't cope. We even had somebody in the early days who was trying to apply for funding and actually had COVID, was really ill, and was trying to get her funding application in, and we were just trying to do what we could and help them through that as well. So we have seen an extraordinary sort of community come together, I think. And in the very early days when we did our 11 o'clock coffee and chat, it was just great because that was an opportunity for members to come on, and just as Amy was saying earlier, that losing that human contact, you can't relive it on Zoom, but you can have those conversations that aren't always focused on business, that you can come on and you can have your child hanging around your neck and the dog barking, and somebody coming in and asking you, do you want a cup of tea, and without worrying, and we could just have those conversations about what were you doing at the weekend. It was my son's birthday. How do you do a lockdown birthday? What can you do? All of those sort of human things that you discuss when you see people, to try and get that across as well. And we have had just such a great response from our members, who have really all pulled together and tried to help others when they've needed it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm sure, Amy, you can add to that, I'm sure, but I think that's also testament to the amount of people that put their hand up for the schedule this week as well. And for those that maybe don't stick with us to the end, please do check out the full schedule for this week, which I'll skim through towards the end of the session. But just have a look at the Sevenoaks Chamber website. You've got all the events listed at 11:30 every day this week. But I think even with Catherine putting this week together, and when she first reached out to people to be involved, there were a lot of people that put their hands up to say that they're passionate about these conversations. And I'm sure, Amy, you've seen that. And particularly with the next generation, it sounds like there's a real passion for having these conversations and placing wellbeing at the heart of us and what we do, whether we're got our professional hats on or in our personal lives. But you must have seen an uptake with that.
Absolutely. I mean, after I met with Julie for our coffee, going back and talking to Alex and Paul about the idea, and having them as my sounding board, and the fact that they were both so on board with the idea made me realize, and Paul and Alex don't live on their own, but they could completely relate to the reason why I wanted to do this week. And it's not just about isolation in terms of living on your own. As Alex said to me, it's things like not being able to go to the gym, and then the impact that can have on you mentally, because you're not getting that break, or you're not seeing your friends at the gym, or you're not getting that change of scenery, and how that can impact you as well. So it's been great to have both of them on board as a standing board, and they're part of the week on Thursday, approaching it from the financial point of view, and being able to ask them questions that you might not have anybody else to ask, but you can ask them, where can I go to find this information? So it's great that they're on board as well.
Yeah.
It's funny, and I was just thinking about when we were talking about getting together, the basic things that have been taken away from us are things like birthday celebrations. Nick, when you retired, couldn't have a retirement party. You just, those sort of basic things that keep you going throughout the year. You have things that you have planned. You can't go to concerts. You can't do, so much of that, I think, is having a really big impact.
Mm-hmm.
I actually sadly lost my mum during this time as well. And again, the funeral is small. It's not what it would. Everything is just restricted. And I think, when we do come out the sort of other end of this, we hopefully will all value those kind of experiences much more. And just the fact that you can just go out and have a cup of coffee and meet people and have lunch, or those things that mean so much that we all just take for granted. But having those taken away, I think is, seems to be having a really big impact, particularly this time.
Yeah, and and it feels like such a long lead time at the moment, doesn't it? It feels like a long dragon's tail. That's just, I think a lot of people are waiting on Sevenoaks for tonight's announcements, just to figure out what we're going to be doing for Christmas. And speaking, Julie, firstly, I know you need to go very shortly, so thank you, obviously, for being part of this. Speaking of mothers, it's quite a nice transition. Katrina, I know you've been down to Eastbourne a couple of times, when you can, obviously safely. But how's that been for you? Just that change of scenery, I imagine, has been been a godsend for you recently.
Yeah, that's been fantastic. I mean, obviously my mum lives down in Eastbourne. She's 88 now. She lives alone, but I count my blessings. She is really very healthy in comparison to a lot of my friends' parents. She has her blips, but actually just being able to go down there and take her out and allow her to enjoy the outdoors and get down to the seafront again is just so healing for me, as much as it is for her to be out in the fresh air and to just walk past people and say hello. Because even though we can't hug people or shake hands, or we can, just by talking, by smiling. I see a lady regularly who I pass when I'm out walking here, and I'll say hello to her, and she's, I always remember you, she said, because you always smile at us and you always say hello, and it makes a difference for them. And I think sometimes we dismiss just those little things that we can do for other people, and it can change their day, it can change their week. So I just embrace every opportunity I can to speak to a stranger.
Yeah, I love that. And even just that alone is a powerful takeaway. And it's the same, I think about Max on his 18 months on his little bike with his yellow puddle suit, and he attracts a lot of smiles, which is lovely. And it's it's a good opener. But the same thing, I have taken it upon myself to let people enjoy that interaction much more so than I think I would have done a year ago, because they're getting a lot of joy just about seeing a small bundle of joy mucking around on his bike. So it's hugely important, those little things. Anytime we can take the opportunity to boost that human connection in the local community, I think is really powerful. So Madeleine, I'd love to dive into your work a little bit more, if that's okay. But I'm just curious, obviously, human development coach and grief recovery specialist. So with the grief recovery side of things, I think on your profile there's something that jumps out where it's not necessarily if we lose a family member or if we lose a pet, sometimes it can be loss of a career or loss of identity. But I'd love to just dive into that with you a bit more, because I'm just adding a bit of my own personal experience onto it. When I became a father, there was a bit of loss of identity, because I'm always a people person. I'm always wanting to be part of communities and out there and saying yes to new opportunities, but I couldn't, because rightly so, I'm giving much more of my time and energy to Max. So I've definitely felt that loss of identity a little bit as well over the past 18 months, which I'm in a really good place now. But just grief can be a broad thing for so many people, and I think with those that are live with us now watching this back on record, there's going to be a lot of people that will have lost maybe a bit of identity, obviously financial uncertainty, but yeah, I'm just wondering if you can dive deeper with me for that for a few minutes.
Yeah, I think generally we associate grief with bereavement only, but there's so many different life events that we can experience and go through where those feelings and emotions of grief will be there. Even those changes that we do want, like where you want to have Max in your life, but you're still going through that element of grief. But where we can be facing redundancy, or our job roles facing redundancy, whether we're being furloughed, whether even we're going for a career change, as many people have switched careers this year as well. And then also, where there is that change or loss of routine, how we exercise, how we socialise. I can totally relate to Amy not being, having hugs. I really miss hugs and just being in the presence of people.
I really miss hugs.
Yeah, so these are all changes and losses, and it's a very normal human reaction to grieve this. And I think just knowing that it's grief can help people as well, because it just gives us permission that it's okay to feel how we feel.
Yeah, and I'd imagine sometimes, obviously, as a development coach as well, obviously you have a lot of people that do open up to you one-to-one, and that conversation can probably be quite fluid and go in all sorts of different directions. But I'm sure everybody watching this would be just quite interested about the types of conversations that you have been having over the past 6 months, compared to your work previously. Just maybe some of the trends that people have been struggling with, and perhaps one or two things that you tend to guide people through, some of the language we might use to support those who are, particularly struggling at the moment.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people will work with me when they have lost someone close with them,
right,
close to them, because they will recognise grief with bereavement. And then, what I'm also starting to notice is a change of language when you're working with somebody, because what brings somebody to coaching is not necessarily what you then end up working with somebody with.
Yeah.
And then often, when you're working with somebody around grief, it is getting to that stage then of helping them, because you look for purpose, you look for meaning, because grief is often a catalyst for change. And often the time when you're in it, you don't see that. But it's only when you go process it and work through it, and then you reflect back, that you notice, well, actually, this has been a significant part of my life and has led me to do something else, or, whatever it may be for each person. But we all look for meaning at some stage. And that's, again, where the coaching can help. But I think, we need to maybe recognise, what's the language that we're using with ourselves. I often hear people go from I want, to do this, this and this, and now it's, very much I need to. There's a desperation, like something has to change. But, I think self-awareness is very, very key to helping ourselves and others. How are you talking to yourself? Would you be talking to your friend like that? Most likely not.
Yeah.
We tend to show compassion outwards and then criticism inwards. So, pay attention to the words that you use to help yourself, and, how you talk to yourself. What's that radio station going on in your mind?
I love that.
Change station if it's not working for you.
Yeah, UFM.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm making some notes as we go. Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? And Denise, I can't wait to dive in, with some of your top tips very shortly. But Ian, again, for those that have just joined us recently, Ian and I haven't met before today's session, but I think, we both, again, put our hands up to be part of these conversations because we're both passionate about it. Ian shared at the start that there's been some challenges, obviously, as a musician, rightly so, at the moment, really, really tricky times, Ian. But, I've been part of some conversations over the past couple of weeks, which I'd love you just to join me with this. But, whether it's the conversation around men's mental health, or, there's World Mental Health Day a couple of weeks ago, there were so many different conversations that got opened up around, the power of vulnerability, the finding the courage to speak up when we're suffering, what we can all be doing to look out for the people around us. And I certainly chip in with, my experience in my work as a mental health activist around that. We connect through our weaknesses, truly we connect as human beings through our weaknesses, not our perfections. I don't think we're ever actually burdening anybody when we reach out for help. I often think we're giving the other person a gift to be able to help us. I often think that, so it's an honor to be able to help other people. In this, loads of other tangents we can go down around putting ourselves first, and not knowing who else will inspire to speak up when we find the courage to speak up ourselves, which is obviously why we're so grateful for you, for joining us on this session, and for sharing what you did at the start. But for men in particular, I think that's one topic we can just touch on briefly. Is I think there's a generational shift starting to happen, where we do realize that being vulnerable as a man isn't a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. But I just wonder, just in your world, with your friendship groups or your connections, if you've had more of these conversations recently, because the mere fact that you're here is wonderful.
I mean, yeah, we talk anyway. Me and my friends, we're quite open books. So, if we are struggling, we will sort of have that WhatsApp chat where we just throw it out there and just sort of get it out in the open. Yeah. I think more and more men these days are opening up and talking more about how they feel, and if they're struggling, it's more of a modern day man thing to do. Whereas obviously previously people would bottle it up, keep it to themselves, and struggle on their own. Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, I did know someone as well who I went to college with, took his life in lockdown, unfortunately, which was like terrible news for him and his family, 3 children. I just think it's hit some people really, really hard during lockdown, and that, I think that's what you said. It's really important that you do talk about these things, and you do reach out for help if you need it, especially with like your friends and family. That's what they're there for. And we've got all the technology these days with Zoom and like other ways of communicating, WhatsApp chats and these sorts of things. We've been doing sort of things via like quizzes via like the laptops, and just this, that and the other, just to keep each other going. I mean, I think like when we had our first lockdown, that's really, really tricky. And then I think a lot of us kind of thought, well, that's good. It's kind of, we're coming out of this now. And now we've gone into a second one. I think a lot of people are finding it quite hard, although it's not as strict as the first lockdown. I still think people in the back of their minds have got Christmas there, and like, what's going to be happening? How's it going to affect us? How's it going to affect our families? Who's going to be on their own? All things like that. It's very difficult, and like I say, people just need to talk about it. and just be there for each other.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ian. Obviously, sorry to hear the news, but yeah, you're totally right. And, just something that just jumped out to me, and, Denise, we can come to you in just a second, but it might be an interesting transition here because, this study that I came across fairly recently, I just can't stop thinking about it. Just building on what Ian was saying there was a study done in the 70s with men in particular in the United States. And they asked thousands and thousands of men, who would be the people closest to you in your life that you'd be happy opening up to besides your wife or your partner. And at the top of the list, it was the barman. The second, it was the barber, the hairdresser. The third was a priest, if they were religious. Number 4 was family, and then number 5 was friends. So it goes to show that there is actually power in having these conversations with those that aren't perhaps in our immediate bubble. I know that, Madeline, obviously, Denise, you work in this world where people reach out to you for that safe space to have that conversation. But what I would say is that the Chamber actually does offer a really supportive, safe space to have these courageous conversations together. That's obviously my big dream with Are We OK Sevenoaks, but you have to bear with me until we can get back out there and have the live events. But I think anytime that we recognise there's a supportive and safe environment to have courageous conversations, the better. So, Ian, you said, about your friendship base, but, with Madeline and Denise's work, it doesn't always have to be those, in your immediate lives, because sometimes we need to talk about them anonymously sometimes as well. But, just recognising them when we've got, such a supportive environment around us is it's really powerful. So Denise, I'm aware of time. Obviously, we're not getting towards the end, but I'd love to dive into some of your work and some of your top tips for dealing with these challenging and uncertain times that we're living in right now, because I think it's hopefully going to spark a few conversations with the rest of us as well. So are you happy to take the lead for a few minutes? I'm fascinated by your work. In fact, could you just give us 30 seconds, 1 minute of your career history, because it's pretty fascinating.
Okay, well, my career history very quickly. I mean, I got into sport. I played netball for Kent, went to Hong Kong, and then did 2 world championships, 91, 95, in Sydney and in Birmingham. And then when I came back to England, I became an England Super League coach and was part of the pioneering for sport netball when it started to get television coverage. So I did that, and then I became the national coach for Scotland and the Super League coach for the Glasgow Wildcats. And then I was in the lead up to the 2014 Glasgow Commonwealth Games. And after 4.5 years of traveling from here to Scotland every week and 65-hour weeks, I found myself no longer in the role. So this was a point in my life where it was really painful. And I just to cut a long story short, that's when I had this incredible epiphany around human performance, which, I've been looking at, all sorts of CBT, NLP, positive affirmations, positive psychology, self-talk, visualization. All my life, I've been looking at what can we do in order to understand our mind such that we feel better. And of course, in performance, such that we perform better. And it wasn't until I had that epiphany which led me to another piece of work, which is known as the 3 principles behind the human experience, which was uncovered by the late Sydney Banks 40 years ago, that I really got it. Like it was just oh my goodness moment. You are kidding me. Like, are we really looking in the wrong direction for our well-being? Are we really looking in the wrong direction to feel okay? And am I really making this all up? And it was really deep, and it just changed my life, completely changed the way I am as a person, as a parent, as a woman, as a business leader. And I didn't make that happen. There was no techniques, there was nothing. It just happened. And my feelings about not going to the Commonwealth Games after working all my career for it just fell away. And I did go to the Commonwealth Games 18 months later with nothing but joy and love and compassion for the new coach. And I just had the best time ever. And that wouldn't have been available to me. No doubt that would not have been available to me had I not had this incredible, profound realization about how humans get to experience life.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, that's just in a real brief, that's kind of how I have been now for the last 7 years, focused and inspired to continue this work and just to see where it takes me.
Yeah.
But the youth is my main thing. Like if we can really help the youth to understand their experience in a much more profound way, then we won't scare ourselves quite so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amy, it sounds like another session for the next generation at some point, for sure. So Denise, we have got 15 minutes left. So I mean, I don't know how long you would like, but you were very happy to give us some top tips for dealing with these challenging times that we're all living in right now. You know, uncertainty, overwhelm, financial pressures, disconnection, social isolation. There are a lot of, you know, the whole range of struggles that people are facing out there right now is vast. And I know we're not going to be able to, you know, there's no magic bullet. We're not going to solve everything in the next 5-10 minutes. But, you know, I'm sure there are some, you know, really powerful things that you'd be happy to share with everybody if you're happy to dive into a few now.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing, Dan, is to let's just go there. And I mean, for me, it's all about, you know, first of all, how we listen is really key. Okay. And I didn't know this, but I realized that we listen with a lot on our mind because we're listening. And as soon as somebody says top tips, everybody's poised with their pen to see if what is being said it is going to help. And the problem with that is that already they are listening from a place of either the thing is going to be either in agreement with it, or they're going to disagree with it, or it's going to resonate with them, or they're going to affirm it. Yeah. And this conversation isn't geared towards that style of listening. So Michael Neal, who wrote Inside Out Revolution and is a master at this understanding of the mind, he said to me one time, listen like a rock with ears. So that's the first thing is, and that's the same when we're in a conversation with people that are going through, they're going through turmoil, is just be with them. Like, and when we start to see the health in somebody, but for their thinking, the incredible resilience of human life, when we start to see, oh, hang on a minute, 2 cells make a human being, and this being is conscious, it has this incredible awareness, and there's an intelligence behind that. There's this incredible design of human life. When you start to look towards that in a person and you start to see, well, but for their temporary fluent thinking, they're okay. They are perfect and whole and nothing needs fixing. And one of the things I that allows me to do this work and work with people that are in really horrible situations and the suffering that people are going through is that I can be with them in a space of neutrality. I can be with them connecting soul to soul, connecting on a level that is unhindered by my personal thinking. All right, so it's really heartfelt, and what we're doing is we're looking to see if we can help somebody to identify how the human experience is working, so such that we are always in our thinking. And I just invite everyone now just to sit back and just be. Like you know, if you get some thoughts coming in, popping in, just put it to the side. Like you can have them back if you want them later, right? But the energy of thought is coming to us all the time, and consciousness in this understanding is just kicking in our sensory system, and it's just bringing it to life. All right, and it's just the mind activity. Like, one of the things I talk about quite gruesomely actually is the difference between the mind and the brain. Like, the brain is the hardware. If you kind of chop the brain in half, and you're looking for all their experiences, you're looking for all their judgments, their opinions, their inspirations, it's not there. And that's the difference between the brain and the mind. The mind is this formless understanding, this formless energy, it is the unknown. We don't really know how that works, but it gives us an experience of life. And it gives us this temporary feeling state. And one of the things, Dan, that I've really see is to help people to not be afraid of their experience, and to not look out there in the world for a nicer feeling. Because if we continually look outward, Dan, in a world which is really crazy right now and completely uncontrollable, then we are going to suffer. But if we look inside and we turn it 180 degrees and we look inside and think, okay, where do my feelings come from? Like, yeah, that's so true, Denise. When I'm not thinking it, I'm not feeling it. Right? And if I can start to see them, as in the metaphor of the clouds, clouds coming over, if I can start to see my thinking as that, and the sun, the constant nature of our resilience and our wisdom as human life, and the peace of mind that brings us, then you know what? It gives us hope. And hope is such a powerful, powerful thing, because we can get caught up in our temporary, if you like, illusionary thinking. I mean, just have a step back and look at all of the content of your mind. And here's a really good example in sport, is that you could lose a match. Like, this has happened, that you could lose a match and a world ranking or even just a local match, and you could be really annoyed, really frustrated. And you know what? By tea time, it's gone. It's different. And it looks like, this is key, it looks like that our feelings, feelings get better or related to time. All right, so we get over stuff in time. Time heals everything. Well, what if it has nothing to do with time? What if it just looks like that? And for me, I could see that in sport, yeah, that's true. And I did an example of I did a experiment, and I went around the room and I said, well, how do you feel about the loss? And you know what? There was 12 athletes, and they all felt differently. Well, hang on a minute. If the loss caused the feeling, then surely they would all feel the same. And then later on, I went around the room again, and you know what? Every single athlete, their feeling state had changed. Well, again, if the loss, that which is outside of us, and that can be the pandemic, it could be, the business uncertainty, it could be even losing people. If our feeling states come from that, then how come it changes? And the truth is that we only ever feel our thinking in the moment as human beings. And when we recognize that and wake up to the truth of that, our mind's clear and we settle down And we really know this to be true. And we don't then keep looking out there for a better feeling. We actually then start to just settle into our innate raw materials of being human, which we've seen in this pandemic: compassion, love, unity, oneness. We've seen peace of mind, clarity, wisdom, resilience, all of that coming through. And the more we look there, you know what, that is going to raise the level of consciousness of people, of humanity. That alone is going to provide the solutions to world problems. If we keep looking out there, we're looking in the wrong direction. But if we look here, we can see that we are perfect and whole, and human beings are amazing. We've been here for thousands of years, and we're gonna be here for thousands of years. And we get to live in these bodies for this time. And that is just such a beautiful thing to start to get a sense of. And then, you know what, Dan, we can play the game of life.
Mm-hmm.
And we can play it full out and feel this. And we can be okay with not feeling okay. And profoundly knowing that we're not stuck in that feeling. When our thinking changes, it's going to take our feeling with it.
Mm-hmm. I could listen to you all day. I've got beautifully distracted staring into your eyes through the screen, Denise. I'm just very, very, very aware of time, but wow, really, really powerful. And I don't want to think ahead. I don't want to think about the next thing I was going to say. I just want to look at you and listen to you all afternoon. Hugely powerful, hugely powerful. And if we haven't got another session this week already booked in, I think everybody watching this will appreciate and value a full session of much more of this, Denise. So thank you so much for that. And I think this whole session forced me to be still today, which is great. But that was magic, actually. Katrina, obviously I'm aware of time, but energy, for you plays a huge part in your life. And I think we've all felt energy in different ways this year. I'm always an advocate of chapters in our lives, and we've all got beautiful chapters ahead of us. I just know that. But just energy plays a huge part in your life, doesn't it? And it's just joining me in celebrating what Denise was saying, really, because I do know that we can all come together to raise this level of consciousness together, but raise these energy levels together, and that's what it's about. But whether it's through Reiki or just coming together to have these conversations, I know you're passionate about. I know you're passionate about all of that.
Yeah, and I would agree with Denise. It's about going inward. If you can find that inner peace, it brings a completely different level to your life. I spent a couple of weeks 2 years ago with the Ashaya monks up a mountain in Spain, learning to ascend, a sort of form of meditation, which takes you to a higher level of consciousness. And it is very much about being in the moment. You can't change what's happened. You can't control what's ahead of you. Just be with where you're at right now and be okay with it. And if you're feeling particularly rubbish one day, it's okay. That's just the way life is sometimes. But there's always learnings from it, and just be there in the moment. And your energy actually can just grow with that. So it's all very, very powerful.
It really is. No, Madeline, as well. Is it Madeline? Madeline. Sorry, Madeline. Tell me.
Madeline.
Thank you. And you all had it right. UFM, we touched on that earlier, really tuning into, what is that content? What is that radio station that's playing in your minds at the moment? I love Denise, what she said about you can have your thoughts back in a while if you really want them, but let's place those to one side for the moment. But, just similar sentiments, really. I think so often we can get so overwhelmed, can't we, in our own thinking. I've certainly been there. But it's when, but that's the power of conversation, and again, having a safe space to have these conversations together. But again, just a few things that might have just jumped out at you from what Denise was saying.
I think that I'm a huge fan of Citibank's and Michael O'Neill's work as well, and also a huge fan of listening. Like to really truly listen to someone so they feel heard is actually quite a difficult thing, but it's quite magical for the person being listened to and heard. It can be really transformational for them, and very, healing. And also I think another thing that really stood out is, to approach things when you do have an empty head and a full heart, because that's what, I have to very much tune myself into everyone I work with. How do I clear my head and how do I maintain a full heart for them? And I think it's just raising awareness for everybody. How do you do that? How can you do that? And I think one of the things that comes up for me is, we're faced with so much uncertainty at the moment. We shouldn't put our energy towards that. Maybe our energy should go towards our tolerance and how we can increase our tolerance towards uncertainty. And definitely looking in rather than out is a huge factor.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we're going to be sharing all your details with everybody that's tuned in today as well. Ian, I'm sure there are one or two things that jumped out from that before we go to Amy to help sign off this amazing first session for this Wellbeing Week with Sevenoaks Chamber of Commerce. But there might be one or two things that jumped out from what Denise was saying.
Yeah, definitely. I just think sometimes you've got to escape what's going on in your mind and try and get that escapism and get out. I mean, I think that's why a lot of musicians do play instruments. It's just that pure sort of for their mental health. If that's not there and you can't escape sort of your day to day, how you're feeling and overthinking things all the time, it's good to just have that outlet of being able to just get out there. And I think that's why it's been difficult for a lot of musicians, is that they've not been able to do that. It's literally just been cut off.
Yeah,
we've been out there, we've been able to sort of express ourselves and sort of communicate and be around people, to just have that just cut straight away. So yeah, I totally get that, totally.
Amazing. Yeah, totally seen. I think the thing that jumped out for me, Amy, I'm sure you're very similar, but both what Madeline and Denise were saying, but it's that power of making another person feel safe, seen and soothed. And I think that piece about making others feel seen is really powerful. And similar to what Katrina was saying when she's out and about, just stopping and acknowledging somebody just with a smile can be enough sometimes, just to make another human being feel seen. But just that power of making another person feel safe, seen and soothed, I think is something that's resonated throughout the whole session. But it's lasting sentiments really, Amy. I know we've wanted to ignite this week. We knew that this was going to be very relaxed and open, but gosh, I got completely lost and submersed in what Denise was sharing. I'm sure you did too. And if you're, well, I know this already, but I think we probably both needed a bit of this this morning. But yeah, how was that for you?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said, Denise. I was sort of transfixed. It was like I had been sort of hypnotized by you through a screen. It was quite surreal, but I was completely absorbed in what you were saying, and I really like the concept of pushing your thoughts away and getting them back if you want to get them back later. And Madeline, the UFM thing, like tuning into that, are you okay, tuning into your own internal radio and focusing on that is another a really important thing to take away. And I think it's the power of, Katrina, as you were saying, when you're out and about, the power of a smile, the power of a hello, the power of bumping into the same person every day and just saying, how are you? Or if you don't see them for a day, are you okay, because I didn't see you yesterday? And just being mindful of other people. But it's just a lot to take away from this first session. It's been fantastic, and Dan, huge heartfelt thanks to you for hosting it for us. I'm eternally grateful, so thank you.
Yeah, oh, thank you. No, I love this stuff more than you know, but thank you, Amy. So so I'm aware of the time, guys, but for those that are still with us, just to spin through the rest of the schedule for this week. So it's every single day at 11:30. If we can go live on Facebook, then we will go live on Facebook, but otherwise you know where to find us here on Zoom. And I think this is going to be the first of many to come as well. But just to spin off a few other sessions for this week, again, every day at 11:30, we've got impacts of lockdown isolation. We've got recognizing and prioritizing your own health and well-being, which the needs to become happier and more resilient. So resilience has jumped out a lot from this first session. We've got loosening up in lockdown. So we've got a movement session with the Swedish PT girl who we all know and love. Lockdown blues. Is it oh my god, oh my, help me out.
Cryojuvenate.
Sorry?
Cryojuvenate.
Thank you. Yeah, I should have read that one before jumping on the session. Working from home stress release, I think we could all do with that. That's on Wednesday. Financial well-being, huge growing conversation, the link between our financial well-being and our mental well-being. That's a huge one that's coming up on Thursday. And then on Friday, actually, we're coming all back together for the Are We All Okay huddle. So just an informal coffee and chat where all of you are welcome to put on your videos, put on your microphones. Perhaps we can have breakout rooms. Let's just see what happens. Yes.
Thanks for this. It's been good. Just want to point out on the chamber, it's only referred to on Monday in the calendar. You could put each of those into, I know the whole list is against Monday, but you could put them as taking place Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just to make sure people realise it's a week.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you, John.
I'll do that, John. Thank you.
Absolutely right. And again, we've full credit to Catherine. Actually, she threw this together with relatively short notice, but she's done an amazing job, given the number of contributors. But you are absolutely right. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all of this week. And I'm sure this is going to be the first of many to come. So to Madeline, Ian, Denise, Katrina, to Julie for earlier, and Amy again for sparking this whole thing. Thank you so much. I'm sure this week's going to be amazing. There's going to be some amazing outcomes for all of us. And again, going back to that quote from earlier, when suffering finds meaning, it ceases to be suffering. So again, if one of the meanings that we've gone through from this whole lived experiences is coming together like this to have courageous conversations together where we can show a bit of vulnerability and celebrate that coming together, then, every cloud. So thank you all so much, and see you tomorrow at 11:30. Thank you, everybody.
You so much, Dan. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.